years old, student, attends formal school 2 mornings a week. Much of his education, however, is carried on in a kind of education center within the home.
And so, an era that began 500 years earlier with Copernicus and Galileo ends as the first astronaut takes his first halting steps onto the shores of the moon and begins a new age of man.
His assignments are programmed into the home computer and fed into teaching machines, which allow him to progress as rapidly as his awakening mind can absorb the audio-visual lessons.
Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, here to talk a little bit more about how exactly SpaceX lands the first stage of their massive Falcon 9 rockets. Now previously we've showed you why they don't use parachutes, and also why they land on land sometimes and on the drone ship other times. Well, today we're going to show you how they use these things that look like giant waffle irons alongside some nitrogen thrusters and the rocket engines themselves to actually steer to a bullseye from over 70 miles in altitude going up to 5,000 miles an hour. We're also going to show you what you're seeing when SpaceX puts this up on their webcasts. Let's get started.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. One small step for man.
I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you going to do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how Everyday Astronaut was born. Since then, the suit hasn't left my side. It's even gone around the world with me. From remote villages in Myanmar, rockets and spaceships. To beautiful fields in Norway. I'm fighting a cow to get a picture right now.
Here I am on vacation in the beautiful Norway with my beautiful boyfriend.
I even proposed to my wife in the suit at Machu Picchu, Peru. These days I work with leaders in the space industry to create fun and inspirational content. I've even been invited to different NASA facilities across the country. all for the sake of sharing my excitement with the world. Hey there, it's me, Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but NASA is doing some incredible... This is church for us space nerds. This is where Gene Kranz was sitting when people first met him. This is with permission. I still don't know how. I love that I'm standing on something that says urine bags. This thing's gonna fly like a cat in heat. Whatever that means. That dog's gonna have a sore throat by the end of the day, I'll tell you that. Especially once he tries to explain to his friends that he just saw an astronaut flying majestically through the sky for an hour. This thing has officially become the bane of my existence. Everyday Astronaut's mission is to bring space down to Earth for everyday people, to communicate science through humor and imagination, but most importantly, to spark your curiosity, to want to find your place in the cosmos. Join my adventures as I seek to find out why exploring space is important, inspiring, and quite frankly, really, really neat.
No!
Elon Musk's new suit a perfect red carpet look?
Or do we have no idea what a spacesuit is?
Find out more in today's...
I'm caffeinated now.
I'm not.
Elon Musk has been hinting for weeks that he would soon be unveiling a new project with such cryptic tweets as, quote, pics of SpaceX spacesuit developed for NASA commercial crew program coming out next week, undergoing ocean landing mobility safety tests, end quote. I said it.
And honestly, like hearing that, we're just so flummoxed as to what that could mean. But now our mucks must be flummed no more because Elon Musk has officially unveiled the first images of the SpaceX spacesuit.
Oh, look at it. Oh, look at it.
Now that's a handsome suit.
Oh, and it looks hot. Look at those lines. Ooh, them curves.
Non-Euclidean, baby. Actually, they're pretty Euclidean.
Euclidean. That helmet that transforms you into the cool member of Daft Punk. Not the one that has like the Knight Rider face, but the one that has like a cool...
We all know which helmet you're talking about.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk showed the picture off on his Instagram saying, first picture SpaceX spacesuit, more in days to follow, worth noting this actually works, not a mock-up, already tested to double vacuum pressure, end quote.
He then went on to say in his normal humble way, quote, what's incredibly hard to balance aesthetics and function, easy to do either separately.
It kind of feels like he's throwing shade at someone with that line, but I can't imagine who, because how many people could possibly be in the designing functional spacesuit business?
Maybe this person?
Or this person? Or these people?
Haha, shaded.
Dweebs.
No!
Our technology is great, but it's getting old. We need a telescope covered in gold. Low Earth orbit is a big no. The James Webb Telescope. Lagrange points are our only hope. The James Webb Space Telescope. Its cameras infrared spot galaxies long dead. Long wavelengths will help us to peer through clouds space dust, 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 dust.
N-O.
And I think when we become aware of the cybernetic feedback loops that describe the whole, baseline reality dissolves, and a new reality emerges in its pixelating wake. Much more beautiful, and much more satisfying.
No!
Humans have always gazed up at the stars. For thousands of years, we thought they were as close as the sun and the moon. But now, we know just how vast the universe is. The closest star is about 25 trillion miles away.
No.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Universe Sandbox. Now this is a game about space, but not just about space, it's about simulating so many different things that go on in space, and I love space. Many of you may know that about me, but I am a living embodiment of the Space Companion Cube. There is nothing I like more than space, and if there was a program for volunteers to go into space with like 100% chance of dying from death by space, I would be first in line to go to space. If there was a mission to colonize Mars and they needed brave volunteers or stupid volunteers, I would be there so fast I would abandon everything on Earth to go into space. And I would love it. I would love every struggle of it. I would love the horror and entirely mind-numbingly terrible experience that it may or may not be, with certain death on the horizon, just for a chance to go into space. But that's besides the point. I'm here to play Universe Sandbox.
Space. It's so beautiful. The elegance, the story of why I love space.
Oh, that's so cool! So cool!
My computer can't handle the rendering.
Oh, that's so cool! So cool! Oh, it's so pretty!
So pretty.
There are billions and billions of stars. Oh, look. There are billions and billions of galaxies. All right.
There's nothing I like more than space.
So let's blow something up here.
Let's blow something up here.
Oh! No! 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 No!
I think a key to what's behind the real belief in flying saucers is most easily obtained if you look at the contact myths. There are several hundred people in the United States who claim to have had personal contact with the inhabitants of flying saucers who have landed. And if you examine these myths, you find that there are some peculiar regularities. The inhabitants of saucers are benevolent. I mean, they're really concerned for our well-being. They're omnipotent, extremely powerful, omniscient, extremely knowledgeable, and they often wear long white robes. Now, this combination is something I've heard in another context. This isn't science, this is religion. And what I suspect is happening is this. We live in very unsettled times. It used to be possible to believe in a personal, benevolent, powerful, all-knowing God who cared about individuals who you could pray to. But now, there's very few people who really believe that, I think. Science, for good or for ill, has destroyed a lot of the traditional theologies. And yet people have the same needs to believe that they always did, perhaps more so because of the times we live in. Well, the flying saucer myths are a really clever compromise. It's a way of having beings that come from the sky, that are worried about us, that are powerful, that are going to step in and prevent us from destroying ourselves, as we very well might, and yet have it in the cloak of science, so that no one can say, nonsense, that doesn't match science. It's all very pseudo-scientific.
Well, yes.
It also seems clear that since the security of our world is involved in converting all UFOs immediately into IFOs, perhaps these phenomena are properly the responsibility of scientists and the military, with periodic reports to the public on what they have found, if anything. The rest of us can emulate the scientists by keeping an open mind, since yesterday's fantasy sometimes turns into tomorrow's reality.
thrusters and the rocket engines themselves to actually steer to a bullseye from over 70 miles in altitude, going up to 5,000 miles an hour. We're also going to show you what you're seeing when SpaceX puts this up on their webcasts. Let's get started.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. 1, 4, to land.
Student, attends formal school 2 mornings a week. Much of his education, however, is carried on in a kind of education center within the home.
And so, an era that began 500 years earlier with Copernicus and Galileo ends as the first astronaut takes his first halting steps onto the shores of the moon and begins a new age of man.
His assignments are programmed into the home computer and fed into teaching machines, which allow him to progress as rapidly as his awakening mind can absorb the audio-visual lessons.
Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, here to talk a little bit more about how exactly SpaceX lands the first stage of their massive Falcon 9 rockets. Now previously we've showed you why they don't use parachutes, and also why they land on land sometimes and on the drone ship other times. Well, today we're going to show you how they use these things that look like giant waffle irons alongside some nitrogen